keep your shirt on. That's what I was trying to remember. Okay,
Right.
let's do this. A bit of a busy weather night. We've got some severe weather. We've got a developing low in the Northwest Caribbean that may become the season's first tropical depression and perhaps eventually a tropical storm. Big rains coming to Central and South Florida. We'll have a look at the long range in the weekend. And yes, I know I spelled weather wrong on the graphic in the second line with the HRE instead of the CHER. But it was too late for me to change it. All that and more on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And we are back.
Yes, we are, aren't we?
Yes.
And one thing I can say with absolute certainty, Joe, is that you are most definitely in the cast of this particular program.
Yes, I am. Well, I'm actually in a boot now. They took the cast off and they put me in a boot. The cast
A
had
boot.
yeah, the cast had aside from the fact that it was uncomfortable, it also had these jagged edges, so I was constantly stabbing myself when I was trying to sleep at night, which was not a good thing. But for those of you who weren't here on Monday, I had uh, a bit of an accident on Friday, if you want to call it that, when at the dog park where I take my dog JJ to, where uh, the dogs had not been to the dog park in 3 days because it had rained here 3 days straight, so they were all pent up in energy. I was having a conversation with friends. I had my back turned to the park, and all of a sudden I heard what sounded like a freight train, and the next thing I know, they took my there were 6 or 7 dogs that came running and took my legs out from under me, and I wound up with uh, if there is such a thing as the doctor described it, this would be a third-degree sprain. Okay. And the fact that he said, Joe, in 51 years that he's been doing this, he's only seen this twice because every other time something like this happens, the bones get shattered. He said, I must have very strong bones because they're perfect. Nothing happened to those. So I got my leg up on a chair. That's probably going to be my position for the next 6 weeks or so. Isn't it lovely?
Did you, as a young boy, did you eat Wonder Bread? Because you remember
Yes.
Wonder Bread helps build
Builds
bodies 12 ways.
strong bodies.
Strong bodies
Helps
12
build
ways.
strong bodies 12 ways. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Well, I'm sure that had everything to do with it. Um,
Yeah.
so you had a lovely trip. I saw some of the pictures that you put up. You had a lovely trip out west.
Yeah, it was quite a week. We started out in Vegas for a couple of days, and then we spent a few days over at the Grand Canyon. We saw both the North Rim and the South Rim. We saw the South Rim twice before, the first time in 1985 BC, before children.
Ah,
And Renata always wanted to see the North Rim, and we finally had that opportunity presented to us. We were there last Friday. And I must say, the North Rim certainly is very spectacular, very beautiful. If you've never been to the Grand Canyon, that should be on your bucket list. It should be a place that you have to see to believe. I know many people have seen pictures of it, or maybe film or video of it, but you have to actually see it to believe it. It was gorgeous. And then Sunday on into Monday and Tuesday, yesterday, we spent time in the company of Don Mackholz and his wife Michelle. And Don Mackholz is one of the foremost sky watchers in this country. In fact, he has discovered 12 comets, Joe, 12 comets that bear his name. And you can see once you go to Don's spread, you can see why. He lives in the high desert country of western Arizona, where the skies are beautifully clear, pristine, starlit skies at night. He has got the equivalent of a large three-car garage building, which contains all variety of equipment, including some that he has built. a pair of giant-sized binoculars whose outer lenses or objective lenses are about 6 inches wide. He's discovered several comets with that, and it's just absolutely amazing. I spent a couple of nights with Renata there, and the sky. I mean, I don't care where you are in the northeastern United States. I don't care how far away you are from quote civilization. It cannot get any darker and any more star-studded than the skies that Don has. And I got to tell you, to get to his place, we had to drive on a road. It was about 19 miles long. And well, you saw if you go on my Facebook page, you can see a big yellow sign near the beginning of the road that says, you know, uh, use this road at your own risk. It's a dirt road, but it has a lot of cracks, crevices, rocks, boulders. And all I could say is we wouldn't have even attempted this if we didn't have four-wheel drive. But I tell you, when we got to the end, and it took 40 minutes to surmount, going up and down, sometimes as high as elevations of 5,200 feet. We finally got to the end and were able to settle in. Um, if you're into astronomy, the view out there, the views that we had were just absolutely superb, and it was just wonderful. And we did see some of the meteors from the meteor shower, which had been anticipated for late Tuesday night. And getting back to New York was in itself an adventure. We took a flight out from Las Vegas on a 737 jet. I mean, we literally were all jammed in on this plane, Joe. And it's so wonderful what the airlines offer you now. It's 5 hour flight, a 5 hour flight, and this is what I was offered.
What a
I
bag
was
of
offered a
peanuts
can
and
of, I was offered
a bag of peanuts and a
a
glass of
can of
water.
a can of Coke
Right.
and a small bag, and I do mean small, about this big, really, a small bag of pretzels. Renata was very smart. She went out to get us a couple of wraps, which we actually brought our own food on board. And she said later on, she says, we were so stupid. We should have gotten the food before we got to the airport. Because at the airport, they know they've got you. They know they have you behind the eight ball. For one little wrap about this big, $8.
Oh yeah.
So we we take that on board. That was what we had to sustain ourselves on for 5 hours on this flight. We actually got into JFK earlier than anticipated. We were supposed to get in there at 5 minutes to midnight last night, and we actually got in there at about 11:20. But then when we landed, we sat on the runway for about 20 minutes. I mean, we didn't go anywhere. I mean, imagine you're sitting on an aircraft that you've been on already for about 5 hours, and now you want to get off, but you can't because they haven't rolled the plane over to the gate to get you to get off the plane. So we're sitting there for 20 minutes. And then when we finally did get off, it turned out that we were at Terminal 4. In order to get to the baggage claim area, we had to go from one end of the terminal all the way to the other. It took us like 10 minutes to do that. And then when we got there to the baggage claim area, we looked at the conveyor belt and it wasn't moving. And it didn't move for almost a half an hour. And I mean, my God, now I'm looking at my clock, it's in my watch, it's 12:30 a.m. And I'm saying to myself, good God, when is this stupid thing going to start to finally roll? It finally did. We finally got our baggage. We put our car in long-term parking, but we had to shuttle over to Ozone Park to get that. Make a long story short, we didn't get home until 2:45 this morning. We didn't finally get to bed until like just after 4 a.m. and didn't wake up until past 11 o'clock this morning. So just again, getting back home was an adventure in itself. And by the way, after not seeing a drop of rain out in the desert for a week, I mean, it was bone dry. You can understand why they have a drought situation. Finally got back here, got in the car, traveled up the Van Wyck Expressway over the Whitestone Bridge up to the lower Hudson Valley where we live. We saw a few drops of rain. And by the time we were within striking distance of our house, it was pouring at like 2:30 this morning. I mean, it was booming on down. The windshield wipers going like this. And I say to Renata, I said, "Welcome home. We're back." And it was. as I said, that was an adventure in itself. But we're back, Joe. We're back. Joe and Joe is back, and now we talk about the weather for this upcoming weekend. And by the way, Mrs. Rayo and all of you are invited. All of you, if you care to, can come to the big German American Club, social club of Putnam Valley. We're having the big Spring Fest this weekend. Mrs. Rayo, one of the people who has been working on this for many weeks, getting together, putting this all together, and it will be on Saturday and Sunday. And we've ordered up probably some of the nicest weather we've seen around here, probably, I guess, in the last few weeks. It will be here on Saturday and Sunday. Great German music, great German food, probably the best German food that you've ever had. And this is coming from a Bronx boy who grew up in the Bronx, but I'm looking forward to the food more than the music. And Joe, guess what? Being a German fest, they're going to have beer. The
Oh, there's a
beer truck is going to be
shocker
there.
there.
So, so if you're into that sort of thing, you can go on Facebook. I'm going to post more information on my Facebook page later this evening, and we'll be talking more about that over the next couple of days. And you can meet one of the Joes in person. Joe, you could fly up if you want and join me.
Oh yeah, you know what?
You and
I
your
could do
you and
that.
your
Yeah, I can't even leave
you
my
and your big
I can't even leave my
you and your boot.
house.
Well, anyway,
I can't
you will certainly run into me if you
I
go
can't
there.
I can't drive for 6 weeks. So
That's crazy.
I know. Well,
That's crazy. But you know what I really feel bad for you is the fact that you and JJ are going to be separated for like a month.
yeah, he's not here, and I'm not happy. He's
I can
actually with
understand that.
some friends of mine, and he's having a good time, and he's very settled where he is. But I'm not happy not
Oh, I
having
don't.
I'm not
I
happy
think
not
that
having
he's.
him.
I think it's running through his mind like, what happened to Daddy?
Oh, where
Daddy
is
took
he?
me to the dog park on. Daddy took me to the dog park on Friday, and then all of a sudden he's on the floor. And you said he actually sensed that there was something
Oh
wrong.
yeah. Oh yeah. He was not. He was upset. He was very upset. Uh After they took me, he was on a sand pile through the whole thing. He wasn't part of the dog pack that got me. He was on a dog sand pile, and he just sat there and watched while they were working on me. And then when they took him away, a friend of mine who was staying with me came down to pick him up. He would not leave the sand pile. He was and when he did, he was crying and whimpering. And when I saw him when I got back from the hospital, his head was down, his tail was between his legs. He looked very sad. So he knew something was wrong. There was no question that he knew something was wrong. They're very sensitive.
Right,
Anybody who tells you
right.
otherwise, anyone who tells you otherwise is they're not dog people. And by the way,
Oh,
uh, Billy the Kid, uh, I don't. Billy the Kid wants me to sue my friends, file lawsuits against all my friends for for what happened. So my only response to that is I don't sue friends. Okay, maybe you have, and maybe you don't have many friends, but I don't know that I'm not 100% sure, but I don't sue friends. Also, really quick, the just really quick with the airport story. So just two very short stories. When I flew to Corpus Christi for the first time, I landed in Dallas, at Dallas Fort Worth
yeah.
on American Airlines. I landed at gate 40. I had 10 minutes to catch the connecting flight to Corpus Christi, and it was at gate 1. Okay. And it's not like LaGuardia where the gates are like right next to each other. Gate 40 to gate 1 is like a mile away. So that was
Yeah.
one thing. And as far as your luggage is concerned, when I went to Italy many years ago and we flew into Naples, we flew from Rome to Naples.
Right.
When we got to Naples and we landed, we found out that just before we landed, the baggage handlers at the airport called a strike and they walked off the job. So we had
Oh. Oh.
so we had to wait like 5 hours to get our bags or something like that. Anyway, yeah, we
So
do have
Miss Spiller
Fallon.
Spellerite. Geese Louise. And by the way, the only other person I know who says Geese Louise is Renata. So she gets aggravated with me. She says, like she looks at me with those big green eyes of hers, and she says, "Geez, Louise, Joe." So here's a second person. Geez, Louise, it always takes 30 to 40 minutes for bags to hit the baggage pickup area. Really, really, 40 minutes?
Not in New
I couldn't
York.
go into the airport. I mean, you know, I've never had to wait as long as I did last night or early this morning. And people, and when they finally the conveyor belt started, you heard the roar. And the other thing, Joe, here it is. It's 1 a.m. and we're out there waiting for the shuttle bus to take us to our car at the long-term parking in Ozone Park. I have never, ever, you figure at 1 o'clock in the morning, it'd be quiet. There'd be a few people out there. It was like it was like Times Square.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot
I
of
looked around and said, what the hell's going on here? It was unbelievable. And she says, Ms. Fellerite also says, pro tip, if you don't want to get home really late, there are usually earlier flights. Yes, we know that. But you know what? We know that there are earlier flights, but if we had to take an earlier flight, our flight left at about 3:30 Mountain Standard Time. There were earlier flights like at, let's say, 9:30 or 10 o'clock, but that meant that after being out all night looking at the stars, we would have literally have had to get up at like 5 or 6 a.m. because we had to drive like 2.5, 3 hours to get to Las Vegas from where we were in the desert of Arizona. So we chose that 3:30 because it was the thing that was the best for us. But also, Joe, if you ever go to Las Vegas, you're going to find that amazingly there are there are many more flights, one and two stop flights as opposed to non-stop flights. Um, going to Las Vegas is not as easy as you think. There are some flights that'll take you there straight from JFK to Las Vegas in about 5 hours, but there are many more flights they'll take you down to Dallas and you'll sit in Dallas for 2 hours and then catch another flight to take you to Las Vegas or St. Louis or that thing. So we did our best, we did our homework, and we still got screwed over by the airline, but nonetheless, here we are, we're here, you're
yeah.
there, and now we're back together on this 1st of June. Amazing.
Traveling right now by plane is virtually impossible, and it's horribly expensive. But it's the world we live in, so what could we do? Okay,
And I
let's.
paid $5.80 per gallon for gas
Oh God,
just outside of the Grand Canyon. 5.80 for gas.
that's that.
So that may make a lot of you who are paying like 4.50 or 4.25 feel a lot better, to pay that much money. I mean, like you see it. You're driving along and there's a Chevron 5.35 over there. There's the Citgo 5.57. It was a ridiculous. And of course, my needle on the rented car that I had was getting down to a point. I was getting a little worrisome that I might, run out of fuel, if not getting to the Grand Canyon, but trying to get back from the Grand Canyon. So there's a gas station. Oh, wonderful. Oh, 5.80. What did I say about 10 minutes ago? They know they have you by the whats when they charge those kind of prices, and you're stuck. You have to buy it
Yep.
if you need it.
Unless you want
And
to.
thank you to the chairman. Thank you to the chairman for hitting super chats. He wanted to thank Joe and Joe Show and the chat board because of us, Joe. He's taking Briller Jeopardy on the road in late June, July to clubs and restaurants.
Oh, which is absolutely terrific, absolutely terrific, and good luck with that. That's great. All right, let's start locally in the Northeast, and then we're going to expand around because we do have some activity. And I'm looking here, Joe, at the Northeast satellite loop with the lightning strikes, and there's actually quite a bit going on in northern New Jersey, and not too far from you. Seeing some lightning strikes as a little east-west band of thunderstorms moving southeast, and there's another one behind it moving through northeast PA. Although that looks like it may have peaked in intensity. And there's some more thunderstorms back in western Pennsylvania. This is all part of an area that's under a severe thunderstorm watch for another couple of hours from the northern half of PA to southern and central New York, east and then east of the Hudson, southward to include parts of northwest New Jersey. These storms are, once they get out of where the watch area is, they come into that marine layer, thanks to the Mr. Backdoor cold front that came through yesterday. And by the way, there were some 20 and 25-degree temperature drops that occurred in some places in a matter of minutes when it came in from the east. The
It was interesting. We were able to on our flight. We were able all the way out in Las Vegas and then all the way on toward New York. They had the New York stations, so I mean, we were able to watch local New York television on, thanks to Dish Network on the flight. And so I was watching. I caught Vanessa Murdoch from CBS on the 11 o'clock report, and of course, we didn't really have much of an idea as to what was going on yesterday, Joe. I heard that Newark got up to 98 record degrees yesterday, and many places, especially away from the shore, were in the 90s. And yet, when we landed at JFK, and the backdoor front had already passed on through, it was somewhere around 70. When we got to my house up here in Putnam Valley, it was about 60. And in fact, my weather station said that at midnight, the high temperature for the day so far as of midnight last night was 67. And then when I checked it again, the thermometer, 2 hours later, it had dropped to 57. And I suppose it got down even lower in the hours while we were watching the Inside the Eyelid show. So we did not, thankfully, experience any of the extreme heat of yesterday. But I must also tell you that in Las Vegas last week, I forget what day it was, the temperature was 104.
ah
And the funny thing about that 104, it was 104. You know what they always say about it's a dry heat?
yeah
Really, the 104, to at least to me, don't know how Renata feels about this, but that 104 felt more like, I don't know, 85 or 87. I mean, it was extreme heat, but when you have dew points down in the upper teens or the 20s, when the temperature is hovering at around 100, it feels so much better than I'm sure the muck that all of you had experienced yesterday with temps in the 90s. I'm sure dew points yesterday were probably at or above 60 during the afternoon yesterday.
Oh, way above 60 in some cases. The radar is a bit busy, and it does look like we've got some of these. Sorry about that. I had clicked a little too fast. There's some stronger cells now moving into northeast New Jersey, Bergen County, over New York City, and southern Westchester. There's also a little patch of heavy downpours crossing Long Island Sound into central Long Island. There are no severe thunderstorm warnings at the moment. There were a couple earlier out to just to the northwest of the coast, but most of this is going to make its way to the southeast. We'll see how much of this holds together after sunset, but at least some rain. Now, if you're south of Route 78, and actually, if you're south of Route 80, or just south of Route 80 and point south, there's nothing going on. So this is all pretty much from Route 80 northward and on up into central New York, and then it sort of tails off again away from southwestern Connecticut. So it's just going to do what it's going to do. We have a cold front that's going to be moving through and stalling temporarily because we have to wait for another wave to go by tomorrow, and that's going to actually shift the severe weather risk a bit further to the south. And the Storm Prediction
Right.
Center. So let's look at what's going on today. We've got this was the risk area that carries us through the overnight. So basically from central and western New York to northwest New Jersey, across Pennsylvania, and then southwest through the Ohio Valley into the lower Mississippi Valley and southern plains, all at a slight risk. Although there are only two small areas with tornado risk, one in northeast New Jersey and a small portion of northeast Pennsylvania, I should say, and northwest Jersey. That may have already played itself out, and that extends northward, and then another 2% risk down in Texas. Now, tomorrow, the risk area is going to be further south. The thunderstorms cut off just north of New York City. There's nothing for New England and upstate New York, and from southern New England northward. But you've got marginal risk. The northern extent of that looks like it's just south of Route 78. And then the slight risk is in the southern third of New Jersey, back to southernmost Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, the eastern half of Virginia. Then it goes back to marginal risk as we get into northern North Carolina, and that marginal risk carries back through Tennessee, southwest across Mississippi and Louisiana. And then for day three is going to be Friday into Saturday. We have a marginal risk for the North and South Carolina and the southeastern part of Georgia, and we also have a marginal to slight risk in West Texas and New Mexico on northward through Colorado and into Nebraska. And the pattern looks like we're going to get fronts coming through every couple of days. I don't think they have anything in their long range from what I saw and earlier, and they still don't. So they have predictability too low, which means there's probably going to be some severe weather risks in the future. And now we have, as far as rainfall is concerned, over the next 7 days, focus your attention on South Florida because this is where this broad low, whether it becomes tropical or not, a tropical storm or not, is not going to make that much of a difference. There's still going to be some flooding rains of 7 to 10 inches for southern Florida, and even up into central Florida, we're looking at anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of rain on the northern flank here. So there's going to be a ton of rain out of this system, regardless of whether it becomes a tropical storm or not. This is typical of systems this time of year. They oftentimes they might become tropical storms, but their signatures are going to be the fact that they wind up being big rainmakers more than anything else. The Northeast, 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter over the next 7 across the Ohio Valley, back through the central and southern plains, and then it kind of arcs up there into the northern Rockies into the Pacific Northwest. Still bone dry in the Southwest, and a few dry spots in South Georgia and northernmost Florida, and also in parts of Texas. So, on that note, why don't we check out what Miami is doing with the Hurricane Center? And in fact, well, that's to see if they got the new update, and they do. So they're at 80% and 80% now for development into a tropical depression or a tropical storm. Gradual development is forecast, even though this system, Joe, the upper air setup here is not ideal. It's actually, in some respects, it's actually hostile. But I guess there's, from what I looked at, there's just enough room for something to try to develop. But I said yesterday, and I'll say it again today. When you look at this thing on the models in terms of the structure of the system and the isobars, it's very broad. And it really doesn't tighten up until after it crosses the Florida coast and comes out the other side on the Atlantic side. So we may very well see this wind up becoming a tropical storm after the low center crosses Florida. So, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make any difference because I really think it's all going to be about rain more than anything else.
Probably, I agree with you. I agree. And normally at this time, if you look at tropical development, it's the early stages of the tropical storm season, the June and July storms that are the ones that produce not necessarily the tremendous wind makers, but the tremendous rain makers. Case in point, this is the 50th anniversary, not today, but in about 3 weeks, we'll have the 50 years, Joe. And you and I know, both remember this very, very well. Agnes, 1972, and that was a tremendous rainmaker. It made landfall at Long Beach, Long Island, then came aground and just kind of sat over portions of Pennsylvania and New York State for many days. And there are parts of Pennsylvania that were a disaster with all the rain that fell because of the stalling out of that particular storm. So, yeah, June and July, you get the tropical systems that are more rainmakers than wind makers. And then once you get past, let's say, mid or late August, that's when everything kind of changes over, and the danger is more along the lines of wind as opposed to rain. Not you're not going to get a heavy duty rain maker in August and September, but again, you tend to see more storms, more tropical systems that do damage with wind in the latter part of the season or the second half of the season, as opposed to the first half, as you just pointed out. Usually it's a copious using a $5 word now, copious or heavy amount of rainfall that's usually associated with these tropical systems.
Yeah, I got the loop here. This is going to be very useful when we get this season with having this with the lightning strikes when one of these systems does eventually develop into a hurricane. So it'll be nice to have this tool to be able to see the lightning strikes because we can use that the relationships between thunderstorm development and the frequency of lightning and whether a storm is in its strengthening or weakening phase work very well. When you talk to the hurricane hunter folks, they sort of emphasize that. And if you look at this loop, it really is a disorganized mess. There's a broad low that can be analyzed, but as I said earlier, the hostile conditions, you can see the higher cloud tops, Joe, on the northern stream of that in the Gulf of Mexico side are all kind of blowing from west to east, and yet the mid and low level clouds are moving from east to west. So it's going to be fighting that shear, uh, but ultimately there will be some sort of closed surface low that will develop. But you don't see any kind of real concentration of showers and thunderstorms near any kind of center. In fact, if you want to, the low is probably in that void that's off the Yucatan coast there, the northeast coast of the Yucatan. There's a void there where there's not really a whole lot going on other than just some patchy clouds. That's probably where the low center is. You've got thunderstorms on land. You've got some lightning flashes going on to the east, but so far not organized enough to consider this anything more than what it is.
Yes, and getting into that time of the year now, I noticed online. I again during the time that I was away, I did occasionally look at what was going on over here and other places. Now, Agatha, now was that a Pacific or an Atlantic storm?
No, that was a Pacific. That was the Pacific, the East Pacific
That
hurricane.
was a
These are the
right.
remnants. These are the remnants that crossed over the narrower part of Mexico and came out in the Southwest Gulf. So this is what's left of Agatha as it
So
came out the other side.
we actually now have something unusual. We actually went through the entire month of May without seeing anything
Yes.
in the Atlantic develop into any a named storm or even anything close to a kind of a tropical system. So that's an oddity. We've the last 8 out of 10 years, we've always seemed to have a storm that developed in May, and there was talk that we might actually see the folks at NHC consider moving the start of the hurricane season from June 1st to the May 15th, but I guess that's not going to happen, at least for the moment. What with this year seeing things delayed as compared to the last decade.
Yeah. I guess maybe somebody heard them and decided that you know what, let's not have any tropical systems develop in the month of May this time around, just to throw them a bit of a curveball. So here's the European. The European's been. I think the European has really kind of been handling this the best and the most consistent. And if you look at the European in terms of the surface low, this is off the 12Z run. Uh, it it uh, it just kind of meanders there in the northwestern Caribbean during the day tomorrow. Then Friday it starts to move to the northeast. And if you notice the very broad nature of the closed isobars around the low, it's you're not going to the one thing that sticks out here is the fact that all the convection is to the east of the center, and yeah, you might wind up seeing some gusty winds in that convection that forms east of the center. That might be the one thing where they'll look at it and say, oh, somebody had a sustained wind of 35 or 40 knots and they'll make it a tropical storm, even though we're not talking about anything widespread. But there's a lot of moisture here that's getting pumped up. And it all came out. If I roll it back, you can see this gyre of what was left of Agatha across Central America reemerges into the Northwest Caribbean. Then it gets over to South Florida. You see the heavy rains that the European produces there. And then once it gets off the Florida East Coast, that's when you start to see the isobars begin to tighten up and you start to get a little bit of wraparound
Hmm.
of the precip. This is where you'll probably wind up seeing the name uh, uh, get used. when it's up on the other side. It passes well off the South and North Carolina coasts, and due to the conditions in the upper air, there's nothing that I could see that could make this come up the eastern seaboard. The flow is too much west to east across the United States, so that's just going to get kicked out to the east and offshore. If I could get the last maps to load, we could take it beyond 144 hours. But we seem to be stuck with. There we go. Now we got the 144. On. You can see it there. It is just moving out. It's not coming anywhere close to the north to the northeast or mid-Atlantic states. So taking a track typical of systems in the early part of the season where they form in the Northwest Caribbean. That's usually the climatologically favored spot. And with respect to rainfall, just out of curiosity, let's look at what the European produces with this, with regards to total rainfall amounts. And I just got to wait for the map to get out far enough. All right, we're out to 60 hours now. So the European produces what looks like most of the rainfall on the European is actually, Joe, on the coastline. There's less inland. It looks like maybe 3 or 4 inches of rain for Central and South Florida, with heavier amounts off the coast on one side and off the coast on the other. That could be true. It could be not. I mean, if I were forecasting this, I would hate to go on there and put up half the amounts with a situation like this. I wonder what the GFS is doing with rainfall. Let's take a look with that. Yeah, the GFS has some higher numbers there over South Florida, so it's producing, every bit of about 5 inches plus for South Florida. I think the idea that WPC has with the 7 inches plus makes a lot of sense with this. And by the way, it's a sharp cutoff because once you go north of Orlando, there's not that much in terms of rainfall.
Yeah, better safe than sorry anyway. And the other great thing about being out west, Joe, in Arizona, is they're 3 hours behind us. But whereas, for example, we have to wait until 10:30 in the evening to get a glimpse of the the NAM FOOS information, comes out at 7:30 in Arizona,
Oh God,
and
isn't that
and
nice?
and and by 9 o'clock, you have a goodly amount of the GFS already in hand. So if you're one of those TV weather people or radio weather people out in Arizona, by the time your 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock news comes on and it's time for you to perform, you've got all of the latest data in front of you, or as opposed to what we have to deal with here in the East, where the latest data is only beginning to come out or trickle out by the time the 11 o'clock news is on. If you have a 10 o'clock news, forget it. You're not getting anything.
Yeah.
So it's good. It was great to be able to, at 10 o'clock or 10:30 or whatever, great to look at this stuff and say, oh, there, it's all there. In fact, I didn't do it every night. In fact, I only did it once on my Facebook page. I think it was on Thursday night. I actually said, hey, I've got all this stuff in front of me. It's 10 o'clock. Why don't I look at it and put together a forecast for the Low Hudson Valley? And I did,
I did
before I went to
see it.
bed.
I actually saw it. I saw it that you had put it up.
And, and I mean, it was, like I said, it would have been by the time I was finished, it was almost 2 a.m. your time or our time right now here in the East. So it is very convenient to get to be out west and get all that information. Comes out the same time. The people out west get it the same time that we get it here in the East, except that 3 hour time difference sure makes a big, big difference.
Yep. The this shows the strong upper air wind shear fields from roughly 5,000 feet all the way up to 25,000, almost to 30,000 feet. And you can see where I have the low center circled in that one area where there's some light wind shear, but just to the north, we're seeing winds of 40 to 50 knots or more, and they're persistent. So it's going to be fighting this. In fact, I just kind of it just occurred to me when I was looking at this that um, this may wind up being more of a non-tropical system than a tropical system when it's all said and done, or maybe some sort of subtropical system, because the strong winds are going to really prevent it. Even when it gets on the Atlantic side, it's dealing with a ton of shear. So, we'll see. It's got that small little area where things are less hostile, so it'll have to thrive in that in order to get strong enough and tighten up enough so that we get to see a name being used from the hurricanes. I think Alex is the first name. Is that what it is this year?
I'm not sure. I don't have the name in the list of names in front of me. Of course, this is the same list that we used 6 years ago. Um,
Yeah,
I don't have that.
I don't remember. All right, we'll let the GFS load. And in the meantime, just want to show the teleconnections, which are on the P&A. We are positive now and going to stay just slightly positive, and we kind of straddle the neutral line until mid-month, and then we go slightly negative. And then after that, we who knows? And then the NAO, which right now we're actually one standard deviation negative on the NAO, and it kind of climbs up to the neutral line, and then just shy of the neutral line on the mean, half above, half below, and stays there through the middle of the month. So I think that combination says that we're going to get be cooler than average. And if we take a look, I'm just going to roll back just a little bit on this. This is this evening. Got a big upper air storm near Newfoundland. That was responsible for bringing that back door front southwestward because it basically rotated in a counterclockwise fashion and moved back more west than anything else. That's hanging up the system that's over by Lake Winnipeg that winds up sort of stretching out, and you get this, very broad troughing in the east right through the weekend. That's going to keep things dry and on the bit of a let's call it a bit on the coolish side for this time of year anyway. We're probably going to see temperatures mostly in the 70s this weekend, but it's going to be a nice weekend. So we get through tomorrow, we get through early Friday morning. After that, we're going to be fine, I think, through Sunday. And then, of course, speaking with regards to the tropical system, which you can barely identify, it's that little kink well off the east coast of Florida by the time we get to late Sunday night. Uh, the flow up and down the eastern seaboard westerly. And by the way, Joe, you look at this. We're in early June. The negative NAO is having impact here because the westerlies are really here's the high. There's like a blocking high in northern Labrador. The westerlies are really far south for this time of year. They go all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico and into northern Florida. I mean, that's going to be nice for me because here I'm going to have some dry weather to deal with, maybe a day or so with uh, although the humidity here has not really been all that high. Then longer term, it's just really trough after trough that drops into the eastern part of the United States until you get to late in the forecast period, and then we start to see the big ridge build in the east around the middle part of the month. So if you like the heat and humidity part, just wait till we're. It's kind of like May, where the first half was dominated by the negative NAO, and the second half was dominated more by occasional big ridges or ridging that build at the eastern part of the United States. It's almost a repeat.
You know the thing about oh boy, I tell you, I had something in my head, Joe, and I was waiting for you to finish, and it just popped out. So now I'm gonna have to wait until it pops back in again before I bring this up. And I think it had something to do with the tropics, but I'm just out of it for the moment.
Isn't old age wonderful,
It
or
is.
getting older wonderful? All right,
Uh,
let's look at the surface map of the GFS going forward. And of course, you got these showers and storms tonight. Then with the front stalled out tomorrow temporarily, got to wait for this wave to go by. There's your tropical system down here. Got some scattered showers up in the northwest. A little bit of there's still some blue snow up in central south central Canada there. Well, anyway, this goes by tomorrow. The GFS pretty bullish there with some showers and storms, southern New Jersey southward. Then it goes out. Doesn't look like this front's going to get hung up, so that's good. Saturday looks wonderful. Friday will be improving. Should turn out to be mostly a nice day, I think. Saturday looks great. Sunday looks good. And then early next week, we start to deal with the next cold front. Looks to come. Well, looks like maybe I don't know. The timing on the GFS sometimes loves to bring fronts through early in the morning, and they actually wind up coming through later in the day. So it's got a front near the coast on Tuesday at around mid to late morning. I bet you that winds up coming later in the day on Tuesday with showers and storms, and then we dry out after that, and then here comes the next round of troughiness and storminess with cold fronts later on in the forecast period after day 7. So I think we're going to be seeing fronts coming through every couple of days with some, couple of days of nice weather, a day of showers and storms, couple of days of nice weather, days of showers and storms. I think that's what's going to be the flavor of the pattern for the first half of the month of June.
Looking ahead to this weekend, I think that of the 2 weekend days, I think both weekend days will be dry. Don't expect any rainfall at all. However, it is my humble opinion that Saturday will be the brighter and by far sunnier of the 2 weekend days because I can see actually some overrunning cloud cover on Sunday, Joe. Some high clouds which may thicken up by midday or afternoon on Sunday. Again, no rain, at least I don't see any rain at this point in time for either weekend day. But if you want a true, nice, lovely late spring day,
It's going to
complete
be
with
Saturday.
sunshine and dry, it will definitely be Saturday. Again, Sunday, a bit more cloud cover, but again, dry. And as you said, temperatures mostly in the 70s.
Yep. I don't know about you, but these 97, 98-degree days are not for me anymore. Although I wouldn't know because I'm kind of trapped in my house anyhow, and I can't really go outside. I went out on my deck this afternoon to sit outside for a little while, and one of the houses not too far from me, there's this screaming little girl crying, I guess because her mother didn't want her to do something or didn't want to, told her she couldn't do something. And I'm sitting there hearing this girl crying, which made me feel bad as a father of 3 daughters. But you know what? I gave that up when they long time ago. So
And they all moved out.
exactly. So now, so I came right back in. But yeah, uh, heat. It's too much for me. Too much, too cold is too much for me, and too warm is too much for me.
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. I've always, if I had to deal with extreme heat or extreme cold, I probably would take the cold. And I'm thinking back to that one day this past winter when I had to go outside and shovel away 4 inches of snow in 9-degree temperatures. But I much prefer the extreme cold as opposed to the extreme heat. Although, again, it all depends upon where you are. I mean, here, 90 degrees with a 60 dew point, it's a heck of a different ball game when you're out west when it's 100 degrees, but your dew points are about 40 degrees lower. Truly dry heat, it's hot, it's intense, but you could deal with it. But here in the east, I tell you, it, it's, I don't know what the word is I'm groping for, but uh, it is something else. You really do go from one extreme to the other in terms of discomfort.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Um, all right. So on that note, let's run through a little bit of Briller Jeopardy that I've been saving up. I'd show you my cast, but I cannot possibly lift my leg up high enough to where the camera is. Not without uh, me screaming in agony. So I am just gonna. You just got to take my word for it. I got a nice black boot on now, so which is a lot. The hard cast that they gave me, Joe, they've had jagged edges on it, so I would stab myself while I was asleep. I'd wake up with pain, not from what happened to me, but because the jagged edges on the cast would be pushing into my leg. So that was an added thing that I really didn't need. So let's do Briller Jeopardy. The category today is 100-degree days in Le Parc de Central. When was the last time that New York City hit 100?
It's been a while.
A
I think I
while, a
think it's
while is a while is a nice answer, but it's not an acceptable answer. We need more specific information.
I think it's the last. It's been about 10 years. I say 2012
Yes,
was
you
the
have
last
you
time.
have the year. Now you have
And
you have the date, and you must get it within 1 hour of either side of midnight of that date.
I'll take a guess. July 16th.
Oh, you know what? You missed it by 2 days. July 18th, 2012.
Oh,
What was the record for the most consecutive 100-degree days?
oh, I knew this. I came across this. First of all, it's three in a row. I think it's
Correct.
something like 1949, I think.
8.
48. All right.
You meant to say 8. I'll give you that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's amazing to string together three triple digit days here in New York. That is just that's what could you say about something like that? And the Weather Service, or that in those days was the U.S. Weather Bureau.
Right.
They worked out of an office in the Whitehall building in Lower Manhattan, and they were right. And on days like that, they would all they could do is just open the windows and hope that they would get a sea breeze off of New York Harbor. No air conditioning back then. And I feel real bad for those guys who were working in such conditions as that. But that was then. This is now.
Yep. So it was 3 days in 1948 and 3 days in one other year.
Oh, really? We did it again?
Hmm.
I think I think yeah, I think it was 1993.
And you thought correctly. 1993 is the correct answer. Since 1869, how many times has the park hit 100 degrees?
Well, not too many. That's obvious since we've been at. I've not seen one in 10 years. Um, I will say I'll say 18 times.
Actually, I'm a little surprised at the number, 60 times.
60?
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
Well, Joe, if
60?
you think about it, it's one thing to have them on consecutive days, which is really, really tough to pull off more than two or three. But we've had I can remember heat waves where we hit 100 over a span of 10 or 11 days, where we might have hit 100 3 or 4 times, just not consecutive.
I'm
So
just saying that I'm saying 100 Central Park has been around. Well, and actually it was not always Central Park, but weather records have been kept in New York City since 1860. That's 153 years. And 60, you divide 60 into 153, you get 2.55.
yeah,
So in other words, on average, we should be hitting 100 degrees about every 2.5 years. And we haven't had one since in 10 years.
I
That's
guess
why I
I
find it.
guess it says when you get that pattern, you get a lot. You get more than just a couple of days, and then when you don't have that pattern, which is most of the time, you don't get any. What was the most days in one summer that the park hit 100?
Well, we just said 1948, we had three in a row,
Yeah,
but that may not necessarily be the greatest number of days for a year or for a summer. Um, you know what? I'm going to say 1966.
that's
I remember
one. That's one of them.
really, yeah, 66 was exceedingly hot. Um, what else? Could it be
Uh,
1993?
no, it could be 1953.
53.
Yes,
That was
1953.
about,
You meant to say
that was the same,
you meant to say
that was,
53 though, because you have jet lag.
no, but that's the same. Yeah, exactly. I'm beginning to feel a little of that right now. But that was the same summer as they did that episode of I Love Lucy where they were going out. Lucy and Ricky were going out to the country, and um, Lucy says because she and Ethel had a tiff, and she says to Ethel, "Have a nice, hot, sticky summer."
Summer.
And what does
Yes.
Ethel say? No matter how hot and sticky it is,
Yeah.
I I forget
Yeah, I forgot
but
to.
the fifties were well known as a decade of lots of hot, sticky, steamy summers in New York, and I guess that's what they were thinking of when they wrote that script.
I guess so. Could very well be.
Yes.
Um, okay. So here we are. It's 8:30. The world didn't come to an end. So Billy the Kid, you could wait till tomorrow. There's still hope for you. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm picking on him tonight. I really am. But you know,
I don't know why on the chat board he's talking about East New York. Very dangerous and scary. Let me tell you,
of
Billy.
course.
Let me tell you, I didn't live there, but I knew somebody, a friend of mine, who lived on Cleveland Street in East New York, and I actually stayed a few nights at his house. Yes, I will agree with you. That is a very dangerous and scary area, though. Well, remember those days, on Cleveland Street in East New York. Not a place that you'd want to be. But anyway,
Yep.
again, I don't know why he brought up East New York, but
I have no idea. He's a man forever in the search of an apocalypse. Maybe they're having one there tonight, and he's going to head over after the show. Uh, okay, so I guess we're done for the night. Thanks everybody for being here. The chairman for the super chat hit, and hope everybody is well. Don't have a third degree sprain. That's all I can tell you because it's it's awful. It's awful.
and
Uh,
and when I found this out about what happened to you on Monday, we called you up. We actually were going to, it was like 4:30 my time, Mountain Standard Time, 3 hours behind New York. And I said, "Hey, let's call Joe. Maybe we could do a show off of the laptop." And that's when I called you and I found out what happened to you. And you always say that you and I are joined at the hip. That
yes.
whatever happens to you will eventually happen to me.
I
You have
thought I
no
thought I
idea.
thought I thought he's going to fall off the side of he's going to fall into the Grand Canyon. He's gonna
Well,
fall and then he's gonna land and hurt his leg or something like that. I mean, we both had teeth issues at the same time. They were we both lost our crowns. I think it was whatever it was.
right,
Uh,
right.
at the same time, and there was a couple of other things that happened along the way. Yeah, I thought of that as I just hope to God that doesn't apply this time because he doesn't want to go through what I got.
Well, the thing is that after we found out what happened to you, and then it got dark where we were, doing stargazing on a very rough terrain, as I said. I mean, it could be very easily trip over a rock or something. And all through that night, Renata kept saying to me, says, "Joe, you okay? Joe, are you all right? Joe, watch out for that." She had you in the back of back of her mind, Joe, all night long, saying, "I said, oh my God, he's going to do the same thing. He's going to twist his leg or break his leg or ankle or something like that." But we got through it, thankfully.
Shh.
And yeah, exactly. You
Ain't,
never know what's going to happen tonight or tomorrow.
ain't nothing. And speaking of tomorrow, we'll see everybody tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern Time on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Dicker and Dicker of Beverly
Oh,
Hills. I got to check online to see if they're still around. Good night, everybody.
I night.